What's up, guys? It is that time of the year where the bait fish and the shad are moving up to spawn. Shad spawn. You're going to hear it spoken about a lot over the next couple of months depending on where you are regionally. Today, CJ and I are going to break down our approach to shad spawn, kind of our 1, 2, 3 prong approach. Our best baits for this time of the year, what we're looking for, and how to catch the most fish while this is going on. So if you guys would like to join us, let's do it. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of O.S.P, Evergreen, Deps, Lucky Craft, Jackall, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard-to-find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, aka the Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy at Desert Bassin on Instagram. We're the Hookup Tackle USA. What's up, CJ?
How's it going, my man?
Good to see you.
You as well.
So today we're going to break down shad spawn. Sound good?
I'm excited for this one.
So this is something that really for most of the country, now there's a lot of part of the country that doesn't have a shad spawn. Like if you're in the Great Lakes, for instance, there's not really a shad spawn, right? But no matter where you are, you can take the same principle and you can apply it. Everywhere I've been in the world, even if there's not necessarily shad, the same kind of ideas apply, right? So, you know, if you're in Japan, you're fishing Lake Biwa, there's a wakasagi spawn. If you're in a pond and there's no shad, there's some kind of spawn, a bluegill spawn, a baitfish spawn, or something, right? But the shad spawn is something that you're going to hear spoken about a lot. Basically, every major tournament circuit over the next couple of months probably is going to be talking about the shad spawn, the importance of the shad spawn. So what happens is we're kind of getting to that time of the year that the bass are finally kind of through their spawn. And usually after the bass finish, the shad, the bluegill, the other baitfish type species start moving into the shallows and they start with their spawn. At the same time that that's happening, the bass now are through their kind of breeding time and they're hungry and they're aggressive. And so they're looking to feed at the same time that these mass waves of baitfish are moving into the shallows to spawn. And it's just like a match made in heaven. It's like the perfect combination, right? You got hungry bass, you got all this food, and shit just goes crazy, right? The shad spawn can be one of the most exciting times of the year to fish. You can just absolutely destroy them, but can also be a very frustrating time of the year to fish because the bass do get very keyed in on specific bait, and it can make it difficult if you're not throwing the right thing. So today we wanted to kind of just talk about shad spawn and the best way that we found to approach it, and hopefully this will help you guys kind of unlock the code to shad spawn, catch as many fish as you can, and really enjoy this time of the year. So let's talk about shad first and what it is that they're doing. So something about daylight really brings the shad up to do their business. It seems like when the shad spawn is happening, it's really that first thing in the morning that pushes them up to the surface, and you'll see them just flickering all over the surface if there's any type of structure, whether it's woods or, you know, like a tree, dock pilings, you know, concrete sides, any type of structure, they will use that to spawn on. You'll just see them all around it. You know, if I'm a tree, they'll just be all around that tree, just kind of in groups, spawning, doing their thing, and the bass will just be gorging on them, right? So, critical things to know about shad spawn. Number one, you got to get up early and be there first thing in the morning. I am not a first thing in the morning fisherman. I love fishing in the middle of the day and into the afternoon, but this time of the year, if you want to go out and catch 50 to 100 fish in a day, you got to get it done before 8 a.m. probably, right? So they really, really key in on that first thing in the morning. Second thing to know is when the shad spawn is happening, the bass that are around are hyper focused on that particular food. Okay, so really important that you see what size shad are spawning in your area. Are they 3-inch? Are they 6-inch? Are they 2-inch? Are they 8-inch, right? What's the size? And that is really what the bass are going to key in on, whether you're first thing in the morning and the shad are just going crazy on the surface and the bass are popping them, or whether that sun's come up and the shad kind of pull back down and the fish are, either feeding on them deeper or they're just kind of full. And what happens a lot is, because they're so easy to eat in the morning, because they're up on the surface and they're doing their thing and the bass are just kind of popping and gorging, they will fill themselves pretty early in the day, right? But they're not going to go far. The bass aren't going to go far. So, think of that sun starts coming up, the shad are spawning, they're doing their thing, the bass are gorging, they're feeding. As the sun comes up, the shad kind of finish their spawn and they just kind of drop down, right? It's not like they're going to migrate out of wherever they are and then migrate back in the morning. They just kind of pull down, right? And they just kind of chill. And the same with the bass, right? So they went from gorging, they're full, and now they're just going to kind of chill. They're going to drop down the tree, they're going to chill in the shade of the dock, they're going to pull off on that little break or sit on that rock pile or whatever it is that is around your area, right? You got to hit them when they're actively feeding, and then when they're not actively feeding, you got to present something that's still going to have that same trigger effect, which is shad. I mean, dude, they're crazy ass fish. So maybe you could hit them in the head with a crawdad type bait and they'll eat it just because you presented it right or it was an easy target. But generally speaking, this time of the year, if you're focusing on shad spawn, you're going to stay in those types of baits, okay? So kind of a 1, 2, 3 approach for me. And CJ, I would love to have you throw any feedback you have as well. And then of course at the end of this, if you guys have any feedback, on baits or whatever that we didn't speak about, drop it down below in the comments as well so we can collectively kind of just share thoughts and hopefully everybody can grow and become better shad spawn anglers as we go through this, okay? So first thing in the morning, we're out there. Where do we start? Well, I'm starting with topwater, right? A, it's the funnest way to catch them. And B, it's just a highly effective approach because the shad, when they spawn almost always on the surface. And you can see them rippling on the surface. So this is a surface-oriented thing. So topwater just makes a ton of sense. That's where the bass are looking. That's where the bass are feeding. So that's where we want our baits to be. For me, a walking bait is usually my starting point here. A, I can make long casts. I can cover a lot of water. I can fish it very quick. I can fish it very slow. I can do a lot of different things with a walking bait. It makes it easy, right? And the biggest thing for me is because we have smaller windows, right? Because we're really going to try to accomplish as much as we can while that sun is really low and hasn't popped up yet. I want to be able to fish quick. I want to be able to find the key zones, the key areas where the fish are really concentrated, the big schools are, so I can catch as many as I can. So a walking bait just allows me to fish faster than something like a popper or something like that. So for me, typically it's something like a gunfish, a kick knocker, a shower blows, Yamato, whatever type bait that you like. For me, usually any time that shad are involved, I'm throwing a white and I'm throwing a transparent. And this is going to be the theme for me across everything we're going to talk about today. Something in a white or a bone type pattern, and then something that's got a little bit of clear transparency to it. So, if you're looking for a great place to start, hard to beat a gunfish, hard to beat a kick knocker, right? Hard to beat any of these type baits. Yamato is a great one as well. Drivin wire has become a very popular one. But typically, something like this is where I'm going to start. I usually start with a white or a bone. It's going to have a little bit more body first thing in the morning. But if the water is crystal clear, or maybe they're feeding on really small shad, right? Then I could go to something that's got more transparency or a clear type bait, and it just kind of breaks up the profile a little bit for me and lets me approach it that way. A lot of days, especially if it's calm, this is the starting point and the ending point to my shad spawn. Done, right? Sun comes up, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock, I caught 100 fish, I'm tired, I'm going home, right? So a lot of times this is the best way to do it. Now, if you are fishing an area where it's super skinny, right? Maybe the water is really skinny, maybe there's a ton of brush, maybe there's grass that's moving up, maybe there's a little bit of a ripple on the water and you're not really seeing them, doing their thing, then I'll go to a buzzbait. Buzzbait's another excellent way to catch them this time of the year. What's nice about a buzzbait is that it gives me a little bit more confidence and throwing it into the heavy cover, into the stuff, versus something that's got treble hooks on it, right? So for me, a walking topwater is going to be more of an open water thing, down a lane, just somewhere where I'm not so concerned with those treble hooks. Buzzbait is something that I'll put back in the stuff, right? So I can skip it up underneath the dock, I can throw it way back in some gnarly wood or into some grass or whatever, and I can pull it out. And again, a white and a clear, right? Pretty simple. Now, if the cover is super gnarly and I need to put something, you know, way back up into wood, skip it way back into toolies, like if they will find whatever they can to spawn on the shad, right? If I just can't present either of those baits properly, then I'll go to a frog. And this is a great bait during shad spawn. And again, usually some kind of white, some kind of transparent, right? So a Big Gabot, Kaera frog, these are two great ones this time of the year. Usually a Big Gabot's my starting point. Typically when we're talking about shad spawn, we're talking about full-size shad, right? And usually that's anywhere from, you know, a 3 to 5 inch shad, right? So a Big Gabot's usually a great option because it's a full-size frog, but sometimes they get really picky, or the shad for whatever reason are only an inch or two big while they're spawning, and so a little Kaera could be a great option because it's just going to be a smaller profile, and it's a great frog. Both of these walk easy, both of these skip easy, both of these cast really well, so these are great options to go. So there's kind of my 1, 2, 3 prong approach here to the topwater. And like I said, if all goes well, this is really kind of your starting and end point, right? You're gonna catch a ton of them on this. What happens if you get there and it's super windy?
You go home.
Well, that's option A. But what if you drove 3 hours, CJ, and you're like, fuck, you know, I wanted this calm morning so I could see all these shad spawning, but it's super windy, it's breezy, I'm not gonna see stuff, but it's still happening, right? You're just not seeing it and you're not really sure, you know, exactly where it is. You need to cover more water. You need to fish a little bit differently than, say, just throwing a walking bait and having it move on the surface, right? So this is generally when I will switch from topwater and I will go to some form of paddle tail swim bait. So either a paddle tail swim bait or a flat side crankbait is usually where I will go when this starts happening, right? If I can't really see all the activity on the surface, but I know it's the right time of the year, I know what's going on, something in here will allow me to cover a lot of ground, fish the same way, but have it basically just under the surface or within that first kind of foot where things might be happening, but maybe they're not going all the way to the top because there's just too much wind, too many waves, that kind of stuff, right? So for me, typically I'll start with a paddle tail swim bait, okay? And again, white and transparent. This is definitely a theme here. This is a great time of the year to catch them on white. This is when white really just crushes them. But sometimes it's too much for fishing. Some places they just don't eat white. So that's generally when I'll go to more of a transparent. And every brand will make a white of some kind, a transparent of some kind, right? A paddle tail swim bait's a great way to get them. A skinny dipper, a Dolive shad, something that I can rig up, I can make a cast, I can fish it very quick right at the surface or just underneath the surface. This is a great way to cover a lot of ground. Now, another great way to get them is on some kind of flat side crankbait. This is when a bait like the Sonic Side, KJ Flat, the Flat Force from Evergreen, this is when these baits absolutely crush because you can fish these very fast. They're flat, so they're real tight, so they have that same kind of shad action as they go through the water. And again, I'll usually go with some kind of, you know, whitish base, some type of transparent like an MB Gizzard, pearl threadfin, Bahama Milk Pearl, any of those types of colors, cold shad if you're in the Flat Force. This is going to be something that I can get down a little bit deeper and kind of bounce off some wood or rip through grass. And the paddle tail is going to be something I'm going to fish a little bit higher and just kind of burn just under the surface. So for me, the paddle tail is still kind of a topwater bait. It's just like a subsurface, but right at the surface, if that makes sense. And then the crankbait is something that I'm going to get down a foot or two down, just kind of bang around down there, but still fish very fast. I'm still kind of burning these in. I want it to just draw a reaction that, oh, there's one, and they reach out and get it. For those windier mornings or days where you're just not seeing them fully rippling on the surface and doing their thing on the surface, either of these approaches, whether it's the flat side or the paddle tail, can be a great option. All right, now after we have finished our morning sesh, right, and that sun starts to come up and they're laying off the top water. We're not seeing those shad flickers, the shad spawn, and everything is starting to kind of pull back down. This is when we have to make some decisions as anglers. Do we call it a day?
Yep. If you're not eating top water, you go home.
Right?
That's it.
Or do we extend our day and start picking them off and doing some other things? For me, if the weather's nice, I'm staying out as long as I can stay out. Basically what happens is those fish are starting to just become a little more lethargic because we just passed their peak, right? They were super juiced, super aggressive. They just fed very heavily. So now they're just kind of pulling down and they're chilling. So now we need to present a bait that's just going to draw a reaction out of them. They're not going to be quite as hungry as they were first thing in the morning. So now we kind of just have to hit them with something that's so easy to get they can't resist, right? Because remember, they've got shad on the brain. So if one just magically falls in their face, they're probably just going to eat it. This is where we have to slow down our approach. And for me, it's kind of, again, kind of a 1, 2, 3 prong approach. I'm going to swim something, I'm going to let something flutter, or I'm going to get something down to the bottom quickly to them. Here's kind of what I'm looking at. The next step for me as they start dropping down is usually just to switch over to a swim jig. This allows me to fish a little bit deeper. This is a great one. I can fish it through wood. I can let it sink down into wood and swim it up and over the branches. I can fish it around grass and aquatic vegetation. I can get it down into the lanes. I can rip it out. I can skip a dock, right? I can throw it down rock banks. I mean, you can fish everything that we have as bass anglers. You can fish with a swim jig. Again, pretty simple, a white and a transparent. I'll match them with those same baits that I had for the paddle tails. Dolive shad is a great trailer, so I could go white on white. Skinny dipper is a great trailer. I can go natural on natural. So I'll utilize the same baits that I was going to have anyways, but on the swim jig. And the swim jig's nice because it still allows me to cover a lot of ground, allows me to fish pretty quick. So if I have a big area in front of me, and they could literally be in any one of these 1,000 bushes, or they could be on any piece of this big grass flat, or any one of these 1,000 docks in front of me, a swim jig's great because it allows me to fish and present something precisely, but still at a relatively decent clip. I can cover a lot of ground. I can try to really hit as many fish in the face as possible. So this is just a great option. Sometimes they don't want it moving. Sometimes they get just super locked in or super keyed in to maybe some specific targets. Maybe there's one key dock that everything happens on, or one group of bushes off on this flat and everything happens on these bushes and there's 100 bass in these trees, but they're not chasing anything or doing anything, right? So when that happens, then it's time to kind of flutter something down to them and fish that kind of mid-suspended column. This is where, something like a Senko is really hard to beat. This type of fall, something you could rig weightless and it's just going to kind of fall and generally just kind of pick off those suspended fish when they're just chilling, not at the top, not really at the bottom. They're just kind of vegging out. Again, I'll stay in the whitish type patterns. Some other baits, if you don't want to throw Senko or just want to mix it up, Sakamata shad is one that has become very, very popular over the last year or two from Deps. It is a fluke style bait that you can, of course, fish like a fluke, but it has these kind of fins on the head that as it falls, it has a very horizontal fall to it. Let me take one out, CJ. It'll be a little bit easier to see. We've talked about this before, so I think most of our viewers know.
I love that bait.
The Sakamata shad?
Oh, it's great.
It's a great one because it does a lot of different things. So again, you can kind of see these kind of almost flared, strange gills on the top of the head. But what that does is when it's rigged properly, it just keeps the bait falling kind of horizontally, right? So you can kind of skip it. Let's say there's a tree here and a tree here, right? You can throw it past that tree. You can work it like a fluke and have this thing just kind of dart around in case there's any open water fish that are looking. And you can get it by that tree. And if nothing's come out and chased it, you can just kind of kill it. And it's just going to horizontally fall and kind of spiral its way down through that tree. It's a great way to catch some of those suspended fish. Then if there's nothing in there, you can start twitching it again. It'll come out and kind of jerk to the next tree. And then again, kind of just horizontally kill it and let it fall. Just like, a shad would be falling if it was dying or chilling or whatever. It's just presenting something down to it, right? So that's another great option. Another one that's become very popular is the cover scat, right? So you could go with something like this. This will let you fish it a little bit quicker, a little bit deeper, so something like this could be a good option. Another one for me that I love when we're talking about horizontal fall is just the 5-inch spark shad. So for me, this is where I usually go over a Senko. You know, obviously a Senko is a proven, this will catch fish anywhere in the world. It just, I don't know if boring is the right word. I've caught a million of them on a Senko, and it's kind of boring. I don't know why this is any less boring, because I kind of fish it the same way, but it just seems a little bit more exciting to me to catch them on this. If you rig this properly on like a 6/0 beast hook, or even a 6/0 weighted beast hook, again, similar to the Sakamata shad, because of how this bait is built, kind of has these fins on the side that keep the bait righted, right? I don't know if that's the right word, but they keep it horizontal. Right? So as it's falling, these fins prevent it from kind of just nose diving down. So it's swimming along, it's kicking, and all of a sudden you kill it, and it just kind of flutters horizontally. It just kind of has that same kind of horizontal fall. So again, I can throw it past a bush, I can swim it up to the bush, I can kill it, it'll fall horizontally. I can swim it, I can kill it, it'll fall horizontally. It's just a great Senko type bait when they're just kind of suspended in that zone.
It's crazy the amount of drawing power that bait has too. It does have so much body to it.
True.
Like I fished it at Pleasant in like 30 feet of water. It's 20-foot fizz. Then I'm watching fish come up and check that bait out.
Yeah, if you throw, there's certain baits that have that drawing power, like you said. A spark shad's one of them. You know, a mag draft is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And you could certainly, I mean, there are a million baits that could work, right during this period, right?
Oh, yeah.
So no reason why you're not throwing a 6-inch or 8-inch mag draft freestyle, or any of these types of things, right? But this just tends to be one that I like for a specific reason. Generally, if the fish are a little bit more active and a little bit more aggressive, I'm throwing the Topwater, just because it's more fun. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I go to this, it's because they've kind of just chilled out and they've laid off a little bit, and they're more just suspended and very specific. And I can have it just kind of flutter down somewhere. You're totally right on the draw power, and that's why going to a bait like either a spark shad or a Sakamata shad can be good, because you know when you throw a Senko in, a Senko has basically one action. Yes, you can kind of twitch it and it will kind of move, but really it just wants to kind of horizontal flutter, right? It's a specific target. There's a tree. I'm throwing my Senko to the tree. I'm going to let it kind of flutter down. Whereas a bait like this, you can move and twitch and swim, right? And it's still going to have draw power for fish that maybe aren't around that specific target, right? And who knows? Maybe you catch fish before you got to the target that you really wanted to put this in, or after the target you really wanted to put this in. And that's one of the great things about using certain baits. Again, this is a 5-inch version. There's a 6-inch, a 7-inch, an 8-inch, right? So you could go bigger and bigger and bigger, and they all pretty much do the same thing. On the spark shad, the 5-inch is kind of the magical size here for doing this. You can get the 4-inch to do it, but there's something special about that 5-inch and the way it falls horizontally that's just, it's just a great trigger bait. If the fish are deeper and they've kind of just position themselves at the bottom, well, it's time to put something down on the bottom that can, again, hopefully be a trigger. You could certainly, you know, take any of the baits that we've talked about so far and just put a Texas rig on it, right, or heavier free rig, and just throw it down there on the bottom. Typically, for me, I tend to go with more of a Beaver style bait, just something that's easy to kind of go through the grass or through the cover and just kind of get down there. And this is going to be more like flip, pitch, Texas rig type stuff. Great time to throw an O.S.P. Dolive Beaver. Pull that one out of the boat.
That's like the new clear version.
Yeah, right, exactly. So a white and a clear, right? The Rock Hog by Megabass is another great one for this time of the year because it has a tremendous flapping motion. It's a real fast motion without being like real snaky. And this is why I like a creature style bait. I don't necessarily want something real snaky, right? Because they're still really keyed on shads. They're keyed on that real tight movement. So I like baits like a Rock Hog they have here. I'll open this up real quick and show it. And again, this is a bait that we talk about a lot, but tends to get overlooked a lot too. So you can see it's just a pretty solid body, right? And it's just got these two little claws, but those claws are very fast moving. So they're just kind of swimming like this, but they're real fast as it falls. So it's, again, kind of a real tight bait that just has that real bait fishy type motion to it, and it works great. And again, pretty simple, a white transparent. This is also a great time just to throw just a straight up, you know, like a white trash beaver is a great one for that as well. So these baits will just let me kind of get it down there a little bit deeper. Sometimes the shad will spawn on like big wood or big docks that might be sitting in 10 or 12 or 15 feet of water. And so the fish will move up and they'll feed, and then they'll just kind of drop down and they'll be chilling down there in 12 or 15 feet. You could get a Senko down there, but it just takes a long time to get a Senko down there, where you could just, you know, Texas rig, you know, a rock hog or beaver or something like that, and boom, it's down there. So these are just great options when those fish have just kind of sucked down closer to the bottom and they're just down there. We're just going to start pitching around, throwing a little Texas rig or a heavier free rig around, and just get that bait right down to them, and again, try to trigger them closer to the bottom.
Yeah, what's so cool about the shad spawn, man, is like you can fish in so many different ways. So like for a guy that is maybe not as experienced in fishing and wants to try a ton of different techniques, this is the perfect time to do it, because you can almost catch them on just about anything. Shallow, you catch them on, you know, up shallow, catch them mid-water column, catch them deep in wood, out on flats. Like, it's crazy. It's a great time to learn.
And it's a really good point. Probably the hardest thing in learning how to fish is you have to get bites, right? And I know that seems like, that sounds obvious, but until you get bit, it's hard to really know, what does a bite feel like? How does my hook set have to be? Like, there's so many things that we work through after the bite, right, as anglers, that you've got to get bit. And this is an amazing time of the year to go out and get bit on different things. CJ and I were kind of jokingly talking about, all right, Topwater's done, let's go home. Because some days you can just get spoiled. And a lot of days, like, we'll be working, and it's like, dude, let's just run out, hit the shad spawn for an hour, and then get off. And a lot of days you can run out, and if you hit it right, you can jack 40, 50, 60 fish an hour, leave, right? Leave them biting some days and go home. But it's a great time to literally, on any given day, you catch them on topwater, you can catch them on multiple different kinds of topwater, right? You could catch them on a fluttering bait, you catch them on a swim bait, you catch them on a fluke, you catch them on a pitch, you catch them on a like, it's a great time of the year to just go out and get bit on different things, different ways, have a great time, but learn a lot as well about techniques and what you do well, and what you suck at, right? And start working and honing and fine-tuning that for when, you know, because really after shad spawn, it kind of just goes to summer. You know, there will be windows, there will be little bursts of activity when they're, you know, around bait and different things, but they become much pickier. When they're in shad spawn, there's just so much food everywhere and they're just gorging themselves, and so you can make some mistakes in retrieve and cadence and presentation, and you can get away with it a little bit easier because they're a little bit more aggressive. But as we start transitioning more into summer, they're going to get pickier and pickier and pickier, and you got to fine-tune your approach. So again, just a great time of the year to really work through some things, knock some rust off.
Yep, it's the last hurrah before the summer.
That's it.
Load up on your fish now.
That's it. Let's get it. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap for us. That is our approach to the shad spawn. And again, you know, keep an open mind. There are a ton of baits, you know, in the world and through the shop that we could use to potentially catch a fish this time of the year. What we talked about today are kind of just proven baits that we've always used or that always seem to catch them really good. So if you're looking for a starting point, hopefully this will help you just kind of get momentum through the season, right? But if there's something that's been working great for you that we didn't mention, again, drop it down below. I want everybody to just learn as much as we can collectively as a group. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful shad spawn season. Thank you, guys, for the time. Drop any questions you have below, and I will definitely get to them. And we will see you on the next episode. See ya, CJ. Peace.
See ya. Peace.